of IIT. Now, IIT aims to bring together through this fest world's leading scientific minds, the most influential thinkers, innovators, and spirited students together for a very experienced discussion. So, I would like to call upon our elite panelists over to the stage. First of all, we have with us Mr. Ramesh Dorairajan, the Senior General Manager at Tata Motors. We have Mr. Pratik Gupta, the founder of Strong Motors. We have Mr. Jenender Anand, the CEO of Revolt Motors. Mr. Puneet Goyal, the co-founder of Bluesmart Mobility. And last but definitely not the least, Mr. Alok Ranjan, the CMO from Vedanta Aluminium. I would like to officially welcome all our esteemed guests, the panelists for our electric vehicles panel, the topic being pushing electric vehicles into the Indian mobility market. Now, our fest's theme for this year, A Voyage to Zenith, basically captures how the world has been changing and the advancements in business, academic and technological domains. The title sponsor of Tryst is Graphite GTC. It is a no-code development platform which allows users and corporations to build entire application class web applications visually without ever having to write a line of code. The visual tools provided within the platform allow users and subject matter experts to actively participate in the software development process, reducing in the risk and better communication. To know more about Graphite, you can visit the Graphite booth at the lecture hall complex. Now for our agenda for this event. With increasing climatic change, global warming and depletion of fossil fuels, the world is in a dire need of conscious efforts to be made from our end and from everyone else for environmental preservation and rejuvenation. One of the leading technologies aligned with these goals and working towards this is electric vehicles. Electric vehicles offer sustainability and emission-free travel to all of us. The EV industry has been growing substantially over the past decade and is reaching new heights even after the pandemic struck the entire world. Now, I will basically introduce the flow of the question and the format of the event. So, my name is Gautam Bamba. I am a student here at IIT Delhi, a third-year student, and I am the moderator for this electric vehicles panel. And now the questions asked here, it will be a moderated session, and the questions will be industry generic questions regarding what can be done from the companies and the other stakeholders' ends, and we'll also ask specific questions from the different company members, which would sort of reflect with their vision for electric vehicles in the future and what advancements do they have made on their own. Now let's just get started with the discussion. So our first question is open to all of our panelists, that the EV industry is, as we all know, it's a very vast and an industry with numerous stakeholders. So as you are all from different domains of the EV industry, like the EV industry has been seeing great growth towards over the past few years. How do you believe that has been your company's contribution towards that given growth? I'd like to start off with Mr. Ramesh Dorairajan of the Tata Motors.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible? Yeah. So, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me out here and to be a member of this esteemed panel. I represent Tata Motors, the electric vehicle business, and I must say that over the past 3-4 years that we've been in this business of making cars, we have come a substantially long way. For us, electric vehicle is still in its nascent stage. We're making this journey go as far as possible. From our perspective, we are present in both the segments, in the personal segment, a car that you and I would buy, and we are also present in the fleet space wherein we use it for e-hailing or for a corporate transportation, etc. So if you want to know as to how our journey has been, I would describe it that initially people were just waiting to understand as to what is going to be electric vehicle, how far would it go, and one of the things that people would want to know is what's the range that this vehicle would give. The second thing and the most paramount thing is what happens to the charging solution. what happens if my vehicle gets stranded on the way? Is it possible for me to get my vehicle charged on time? But if you find out over the last 3-4 years, we have come a long, long way. Tata Motors last year sold close to about 19,000 plus vehicles in the electric vehicle space, out of the total of about 3.5 lakh vehicles that we sold. But what has happened is that everybody is sitting out here, and the people who have been contributing on the finance side, or people who have been contributing on the charging infrastructure space, have also come a long way. We work very closely, of course, with Tata Power, who are our group companies, and they have installed close to about 2,000 odd chargers that they have already installed out there across the country. So, I would say in short that the ecosystem is slowly but surely going in the right direction. And we expect that this would only keep growing further. And I think each one of the stakeholders out here have a big, big role to play. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, sir, for your comments. Now, next we would have Mr. Alok Ranjan, the CMO of Vedanta Aluminium, to comment on this.
Yeah. So first of all, again, thank you for inviting me in this gathering and making me a panel in this esteemed panel. So I represent aluminum business of Vedanta, and I represent the voice of aluminum industry, both primary and secondary. And aluminum is a metal for future. I mean, it is called a green metal. It is infinitely recyclable. It is corrosion resistant. And the best part is that the strength to weight ratio is phenomenal. I mean, it's and at various stages with various application, it can substitute almost everything. It can substitute steel, copper, wood, glass, plastic. So increasingly, and when you talk about EV, the key consideration in EV is lightweighting. I mean, we are talking about global warming, so the concerns on the carbon footprint and energy consumption. So these are the two main concerns which any EV manufacturer faces. And on both these counts, aluminum actually scores very high compared to its substitute product. Of course, there's a concern of cost, but with the right mix and with the right technology, I mean, we can find a very affordable solution. So we are seeing a very healthy growth rate of aluminum consumption in EVs. I mean, outside of India, it's very high. It's approximately 40% CAGR in certain markets we are seeing. India, we are still, rising to the occasion. We are still seeing how can fill that gap. There is a long way to go. I mean, there are some, I was just discussing with Pratik before this session. I think there are certain areas where we need to work together, but we sincerely feel that aluminum, with its unique characteristic, has a very strong future, very good future, and we'll begin to see that very shortly.
Thanks a lot, sir. So, a round of applause, please. And next to explain his contributions about in the EV domain, we have Mr. Jenender Anand, the CEO of Revolt Motors.
Good evening, students. You know, something interesting before I start about telling you something about EV. I just remember 30 years back, I appeared for IT exam. Kudos to all of you, I could not clear it. So hats off to you. You know, today when I was coming here, then my kids told me, Papa, the life brings you back the full circle. So 30 years back, I was trying to enter here, and today I have been welcomed by so many people while reaching here. So thank you so much, and kudos to hard work done by all of you and your parents, that you have made them proud. I mean, you have going to make India also proud. Hats off to all of you. Okay, now coming back to the, of course, that includes you also. So coming back to the EV topic, today as we speak, two-wheeler industry, if we talk about, almost this year was little low because of the COVID or pandemic situation, but almost 20 million two-wheelers are being produced in India. 20 million. The government is targeting that by the year 2030, we should be having close to 25% of the EV, especially two-wheelers, on the Indian roads. Today, as I speak, last month figure, March, was 5% of the total production of two-wheeler ICE engines. So you can see the kind of phenomenal rise that EV is seeing. Revolt as a company started around 4 years back, and I'm pleased to share that almost 25,000 plus bikes are on the road today as we speak, and we are holding another order of close to 65,000, which will be delivered in next 2 to 3 months' time. But that's not the most important part. The most important part is the vehicles have done more than 6 crore kilometers on road. Now that clearly says that what is driving this thing to buy more and more of EV? Is it the total cost of ownership? Absolutely yes. Is the ease of usage? Absolutely yes. With the rising cost of fuel, today I am sure most of you must be owning some vehicle, at least two-wheeler, four-wheeler, whatever you are owning. The petrol in Delhi is 105 or 106 rupees a litre. But if you go to the southern part of the country, it's crossing 121, 122 rupees a litre. So the cost of ownership, as we speak, for ICE engine versus EV. So EV is almost negligible. No service cost or hardly any service cost. No lubricant is required, no engine is required, no filter change is required, no washing is required. You can clean it at your home itself. And of course, what is the cost of running? It takes only close to 4 hours to charge from 0 to 100. And just like a normal 15 ampere socket you plug in, you can charge it. So it takes 0 to 100% is 4 hours. So that means almost 24 rupees to 150 kilometers of running. So less than 30 paisa to a kilometer. And compare it with the cost of petrol. Almost 1 rupee 50 paisa to 2 rupees a kilometer. To that, if I add the maintenance cost. So keeping this thing in mind, at the back of your mind, I must compliment the aluminium industry because that is actually helping us to reduce the weight of the bike. EV has to be, especially motorcycle I'm referring to, because Revolt as on today makes only motorcycle, has to be close to 100 kg. That is what the certification given by ARAI, Pune, which is a testing body for the two-wheeler industry. And of course, for the automotive vehicles. So, above all, you have to give it an aesthetic look also, because motorcycle should be a motorcycle. And then you have to make an ease of usage. Because generally what we have tried is that it should address all kinds of audience, not only men or boys, but also women and girls also. The reason being, it should be driven just like a scooty or a Honda Activa or any kind of a two-wheeler. Just race it, use the disc brake and drive the vehicle. So that is what the drive is going on. You will see the change in the next year. The target is to have at least 10% of total manufacturing to EV industry. And of course, as we speak today, I mean, the government is supporting us big time. Honestly, I mean, government is supporting us big time, due to which all the EV manufacturers are surviving and consumers are finding it easy to buy. So as the discussion continues, we'll add on more points to that. Thank you so much, audience.
Thanks a lot. So that was really quite informative. Like, I mean, I didn't really know that the difference in the running costs of petrol engines and like EV engines is so vast. So next point to comment is Mr. Prathi Gupta, the founder of Tata Motors.
Hi everyone, thanks for inviting me, and it's good to be in the company of such esteemed guests, and looking forward to more interactions after this session with the students. So in a nutshell, Strom began with a vision to make change at scale. Before this, we were involved in solar industry, and we've all seen, you know, in the last decade what solar, or last decade that happened, the way solar really took off and, you know, changed a lot of reality. India is now in the top countries with solar deployment, and we kind of saw this coming into EVs, you know, and the idea behind starting Strom was always to accelerate EV adoption, because as we all know, the two-wheeler industry and also the typical three-wheeler, you know, rickshaws have seen massive adoption, and that change has really been very, very encouraging, and you know, is leading the EV adoption. But when you come to cars, there is a lot of issues that are still, you know, pending to be solved, not just from technology point of view, but also just buying patterns in India. If you see, most cars are bought, 80% cars I think are bought under 10 lakhs. You know, so Indians want to go electric. I think the last survey showed like 60% plus people who are buying new cars want to go electric, but there isn't a solution out there. So we kind of took a view more from a physics point of view, that make a lighter platform which will help reduce your, you know, your battery requirement, and you know, but still no compromises on the consumer requirements. So air conditioning, power steering, all the comforts and safety of a car. So Strom is packaged around that. Strom is packaged around the new age user who's looking at personal mobility. Shared mobility is something that is very centric to us. You know, in the last five plus years that we've been in the industry, we've tried to take this challenge head on. And so far, the response has been phenomenal. We've almost booked our first year's production volumes and have similarly, waiting orders and such. So we see a lot of pull from the market. Now, the challenge is kind of in this coming year to actually put a really good, dependable product out in the market, and that's what Storm team is currently building. But yeah, as in happy to talk on and off this platform. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, sir. Now, to finally, we move on to Mr. Puneet Goyal, the co-founder of Bluesmart.
Thank you so much. So just like Pratik, I've been a serial entrepreneur in the solar space. Me and my co-founder Mole, we have built several solar power plants in the last 10 years, between 2010 and 2018. So we decided back in 2018 that we should start a fully electric ride-hailing service in India. And try and build a safer, cleaner and more affordable ride-hailing service for people living in Delhi NCR and other megacities of India. We saw a massive need for improving the customer experience. We have a very differentiated thought process at Bluesmart. We are leasing electric cars from global DFIs, where development financial institutions are investing in electric cars as an asset class and leasing those to Bluesmart. We are creating inclusive, equitable economic opportunities for driver partners. We fundamentally believe that drivers come from the poor section of society. They should not be owning assets. So while we create India's largest electric ride-hailing service, that should not be on the back of poor people owning cars. We want the drivers to stick to their core skill set of driving and not becoming financiers of assets. So that's been a journey of the last 3 years. We are funded by BP Ventures. We've raised about $62 million. We have the largest electric fleet in India, about 1850 cars, also 800 charging stations. In terms of growth or data point, we have covered about 5 crore kilometers or 50 million kilometers over the last 2-3 years, weathering 3 pandemic events. We have completed till now 15 million trips, but all our rides are 4.9 star rated on the iOS and the Android App Store. So please do take a Bluesmart next time. We are significantly improving the customer experience for women especially. We are making our rides safer. As a woman or as a man, you should feel safe to travel in public transportation. There should not be any fear of traveling in a taxi. And that is what we wanted to do. And also, obviously, all our cars are zero emissions. We get all our cars from, including Tata Motors is one of the largest suppliers to Bluesmart. So the whole idea is to to improve the air quality in Delhi NCR, which is terrible. All down the year we have AQI north of 250. So whether you are a rich man or whether you are a poor man, everybody has access to bad quality of air, and we want to change that. We want to improve the quality of air in Delhi NCR, and this is what our mission is at Bluesmart.
Thanks a lot, sir. So, like, one thing I did sort of get from the conversation is that, like, it's not someone is doing anything standalone. Like, even if, like, Tata Motors is supplying cars to Bluesmart, so the entire EV industry is very connected, and they're, like, sort of helping each other move ahead, and the entire EV industry and the country in general is moving forward. So, like, moving on to the next part of the panel discussion, the next question that I have open for all the panelists is that the pandemic has affected the business world all around us in unprecedented ways. It has acted as a business reset for everyone. And like definitely automotive industry was one of the worst hit ones by it. So I would like to sort of inquire that how have your respective organizations coped up with the COVID situation, and how did you evolve due to it? Like, what have been the major strategic decisions that were made to sort of mitigate this issue and sort of like convert it into a win rather than a loss for yourself? So like just start with Mr. Alok.
Sure. So I think when the pandemic set in 2020, I mean, initially it was a little bit of anxiety because this was extremely new. None of us knew what to do. But then we got together and we said, why waste an opportunity? So we saw this as an opportunity to completely redesign and retool the business. And a lot of focus was given first to the safety of our own people and to ensure that the business continuity is maintained. So to do that, there was a significant shift in the way we were working. I mean, there was huge deployment of technology and the digital solution, use of technologies like drones and digital tools automation. So the entire focus shifted on less of personal touch and use of technology. We were also very agile to change our product portfolio and see to it that whatever is required by the market, so that is done instead of having business as usual. And so that there was a big shift. I mean, of course, we got used to working through Zooms and Team, but nowhere we felt that we are at a distance. So people came together, they supported each other. So that was the hallmark. So the teamwork and camaraderie actually improved during that time. And the number of people we could connect actually increased. I mean, initially the thought was that we will not be able to connect with people. However, we saw that we were able to connect with more people technologically with lesser effort and time. So as a result of that, we not only continued our business operations, whereas some of our other peers had to cut down their production, but we announced capacity expansion. So we saw to it that we added capacities and increased our volume, increased our throughput and efficiency, and reduced the overall cost of production. So that was the shift. I mean, that was the cultural shift which we saw during that period. And now, of course, I think the business, it's now 2-year-old story, and now used to the new ways of working, and the new hybrid model has emerged, and we are getting adapted to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So to comment on this further, like I would like to ask Mr. Ramesh, like to tell about like Tata Motors is one of the biggest, definitely the biggest car company. So how has such a big organization, because like it's, I believe that the bigger the organization, the more difficult it is to restructure it. So how did you like go about it?
So, like each one of you in this room, I think the pandemic gave us lots of time to introspect. For a manufacturing and a sales and marketing organization, we never thought that work from home would succeed. We thought that it's all related to the IT industry and we couldn't do it. But I could tell you that in the last 1.5, 2 years, our sales have just gone up. There's been a couple of reasons for that. One is we never lost touch with the customer. We were connected with them virtually and we were continuing to talk to them. We never lost touch with our network partners. We ensured that maximum safety was there in terms of dealing with customers. All our cars were sanitized before giving it to the customers. Fourth, I think in the back end, that was the right time for us to make whatever was the necessary investment for capacity enhancement, etc. And at that point of time, I think we all put our heads together as to what are some of the processes that we could improve during this period of time. It's a big organization, no doubt on that, and we follow lots of processes across both the plants and in the front end when we face the customers. But this gave us a chance to rejig our processes and work in a different environment altogether. The things that affected and things that were slightly out of control were the availability of semiconductor, the availability of chips, etc., which had an impact. But slowly but surely things started improving, and it's affected the EV industry also in terms of the production capacity, which we also improved over a period of time, because our dependence on countries like China and all are still there. And obviously, when China sneezes, the whole world, at least in the EV industry, comes to a slowdown. So what has happened over the last 2 years now is, one, we have worked on lots of things that we would not have thought we would have. Second, I think we have now got to a specific level of working wherein things have become quite seamless at the back end in the plant. Three, our procurements, etc., we have been able to channelize it much better. But above all, I think the most important thing that we did is we did not lose in touch with the customers. We kept in touch with them, we understood what their requirements are, and probably made all the adjustments that were necessary. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. So moving on to Mr. Pratik.
Yeah, so I wouldn't shy away from saying that Tata Motors almost closed several times during this whole COVID waves. As a startup, you have umpteen number of challenges, but that's where we kind of saw our team come together. People voluntarily took massive pay cuts to keep the company going, and even our investors were always with us. So it's been a human journey for us more than a product journey. But on the product side, it also helped us kind of reconfigure our company from thinking, if not vehicle, what. And we had invested in the last 5 years a lot of effort in the vehicle control unit, automated driving. So we kind of kicked off those two as a separate business inside the company, and kind of started talking to OEMs and others, and suddenly we found that opportunity is also coming along, and it's quite big. And as a company, it will be good for us to kind of reorganize ourselves, especially when you come to vehicle control units for cars and such. There are very few options which are Indian made. Most of them are imported from Europe. And so that presents a very big opportunity, and not just to match those products, but also exceed those from an international point of view. So Storm is really now putting efforts behind that, and we are already kind of getting a lot of interest from OEMs. So we kind of see this kind of ecosystem develop. Something that we develop in-house should also benefit others who are ready to partner. So both from vehicle control unit and automated driving, we are kind of increasing our efforts, and we see a lot of India-based solutions, especially if you talk about automated driving. Our situations are completely different than what is being developed by the likes of Tesla or NVIDIA and all of those. So India needs Indian-centric solutions, and we're developing those. Soon we'll be making announcements, and we're building a big team. So if you're interested in that, definitely reach out to our team, and we can get you on board. But yeah, there's a lot of exciting things coming down the road on those things.
Thanks a lot, sir. And it was really inspiring that you said that even after the company was about to go under many times, you found out new solutions. So basically, you made a very best out of a worst situation. So that was a really inspiring story. So move on to Mr. Janinder.
Thank you. Okay, before I talk about this, again something interesting. I see why I'm saying so. I'm changing the topic a little bit. Few seconds only. I see a lot of people, a lot of students, kids busy on their mobile. So they have better works to do on their mobile, because this discussion might not be interesting at this point of time. But let me give you some perspective. The automotive industry is almost 7% of the India's GDP. And we employ almost 4 million people plus in this industry. So the kind of opportunity, because many of you are in second year, third year or final year, placements must be going on, it will come. Automotive industry, if you see it as a future potential, if they also prefer you, you also prefer them. So kind of growth, the kind of opportunities that's going to come in, not just for mechanical engineer or automobile engineers, electronics, electricals, computers, software, whatever streams you have. Everything is now going to be, digital, AI-enabled, Power BI. You can't even imagine what kind of opportunities this industry is going to bring in for each one of us. So stay tuned. Just try to pick up whatever 5 of us are trying to say. Maybe if you can pick up 1 or 2 good things also, that might help you in your future or career shaping. Might not. So it depends on you itself. Now coming back to what happened during the pandemic. Please understand, during the pandemic, the first part is when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. So what do? What your parents did? Control the budget of the house? I don't think so anything else beyond of that. Everyone was sitting at home. Even I was sitting at home for almost 6 months. So controlling the budget, because inflow was less, outflow was maintained. So we had to reduce the outflow to ensure that we sustain our living. So it was what every one of us did. Maybe many of the panelists who are sitting here might agree with me. We controlled our cost optimization. It never bothered on the salaries of the employees. Why? Salary of the employees hardly 5% or less than that for a company's revenue. It does not bother by reducing the salary and all. I was paying in one of my profiles during the pandemic, we were paying to 8,000 people the salary every month. 100% salary we paid during the pandemic. But it does not make any difference. Whenever the pandemic went away, the production started, the sales started, and the kind of hockey stick jump we saw, everything was covered in 3 to 4 months' time. So, but yes, cost optimization, those things where you do not wish to spend some extravagant things, some new areas where you wanted to spend, we reduced that. So that was the first focus. Second focus was on the R&D. Now your team can work on the R&D, your R&D center keeps on working all the time. So innovate new things which can be more sustainable, more consumer friendly, more profitable for the organization, and more required for the country as such. So these 3-4 things are very useful, what most of the organizations must have worked on, and I'm just trying to emphasize the same point again. So think on those things. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, sir. Now over to Mr. Guru.
In our case, though, we were born during the pandemic. Only pre-pandemic, we had like 70 odd cars. In June 19, I vaguely remember. Now we have 1850 cars. So in fact, we have scaled 25x, including the pandemic period. And obviously the resilience was there. We also raised tons of funding, but the company is being built on some fundamental founding tenets. And our fundamental belief is that asset ownership should not be from poor people. So our cars were leased to us, are being leased to us by DFIs. And these DFIs knew that the global pandemic has come, so they were kind to us to kind of waive off the EMIs, and the lease periods were also restructured. Obviously, the entire revenue came down to zilch, zero, nada in 2020, but that was for a period of 5-6 months. We used our fleet at that time for ferrying people to hospitals and to clinics and to doctors and all that, but we did not pivot. So our business model is pivot-proof, weather-proof, COVID-proof. We stuck to our fundamental founding tenets of being asset-light on the supply side through DFI financing. On the consumer front, we continue to deliver an elevated customer experience to customers, so we didn't compromise on our customer side. But yes, the revenue did go down, and but the business model was strong, and the customer focus, the customer-centric focus was there, and that made us pass through the pandemic. We have grown 25x post the pandemic now. We fundamentally believe that people need better public transportation. Not everybody owns a car. India has the lowest asset ownership in the world in terms of four-wheelers. Only 30 Indians out of 1,000 Indians own cars, like only 3% Indians own cars, and not everybody can take a metro and all that, and shared mobility was kind of off. People didn't want to travel with other people, so I think the use case of taxi was a good use case for people, because people wanted to travel on their own. They didn't want to travel with other people. People were scared of traveling in metros or buses for that matter, so demand for taxis came back. But our business model was solid enough, rock solid, and that made us pass the pandemic test.
I believe that all the COVID stories, like whatever measures you took, and it's been really, really inspiring, because I mean, for us students, we found it really hard because we had to sit at home and attend online classes, and I can't even begin to imagine like founders of startups and like executives from such top companies. You had to sort of reframe your own entire company structure, while the only thing we had to do was restructure our sleep schedule, and that was quite troublesome to us as well. So moving on to the next part, we'll be asking company specific questions. Like we'll love to know some insights about your specific organizations. So starting off with Mr. Alok, that for Vedanta Aluminium, like the automotive industry is a very sensitive one to various factors, because so many stakeholders exist. Especially in the manufacturing sector, the number of stakeholders is maybe the highest in the entire supply chain. So what do you believe that, because as you mentioned, someone in the panel mentioned that due to chip shortage, there was a very it was a huge roadblock in the automotive industry, and I myself experienced that my parents weren't able to buy a car because it was a 6-month long waiting for a basic car. So now I read in a news report that there was also a predicted aluminium shortage in the world. So as India's largest aluminium company, what are your ways to tackle on it, and what are your views upon it?
Sure, I think so first of all, there is no chip shortage actually. So there was huge increase in demand. I mean, of course, there were some localized supply chain issues, but because of pandemic, people started buying a lot of mobile phones and laptops, and somehow the semiconductor manufacturers gave preference to that over automobile, because their return on capital profitability was much higher. However, it's always supply and demand mismatch is a question of time. So there is a lag, and by end of this year, I think we should be even, and there should be no shortage even on the semiconductor. If you talk about specifically about aluminum, so we are lucky. India is endowed with, and not only bauxite, but India is very mineral rich country. We have a lot of iron ore, coal, bauxite, which are the key ingredients for building any nation, I mean, automobile including. So we don't have any concern. I mean, of course, there are, today we talk about global economy for quite some time now, and everything is connected. So anything happening in Ukraine or China or Middle East or America will have an implication. But it is only a matter of time lag, and then there is a supply response to any demand gap. So we don't have any problem as such, and we have plenty of bauxite reserve or coal reserve in India. But the key challenge, if you talk specifically about automobile and EV, is the problem of localization. So even today, close to 80% of components are imported. So I think the focus and the push should be to develop the components and other things which go into making an automobile in-house. I mean, it could be a matter of raw material, it could be a matter of skill gap, or financing. So I think the discussion should move on how we can bridge those gaps. And at Vedanta, we are, I think, partnering with various stakeholders, and we are trying to ensure that there is no shortage, and we are willing to collaborate with people like the panelists who are sitting on today on this dais, and we are here to reassure that there won't be any shortage of aluminum.
That's a relief. So thank you so much. Now moving on to Mr. Ramesh, now we read in a news article that Tata Motors recently closed a $1 billion deal with an investment company to sort of boost their EV plans. So whatever you can discuss about that, what are the future ambitions of Tata Motors as a company? That how do you plan to go forward in the EV space?
I think we are here to stay in the EV space. That's the first thing. The second thing, I think this talk about getting a strategic partner out here was there in the press for a very long time, and then it finally did happen a couple of months back. I think this, as I said, EV is an evolving space, and obviously new technology comes in, and we have got to ensure we are right up there in tune with what the customer wants. Obviously, it will be difficult for me to let out as to what all the models that we are going to get out in the next 3 to 4 years, but you can be rest assured that you will start seeing a host of products as we move forward. I think we have given some press announcements also that over the next 4 to 5 years, you will have some 10 new different models that will come. And over the next couple of years, you will start seeing specific EV products, which effectively means, so today our most popular product is the Nexon EVs, if you people have seen on the roads. Now, Nexon started off in the ICE in space, and then we bought it in the EV space. So going forward, you will start seeing products that appear only in the EV space. So that's where we are progressing. And I think we must also, I forgot to mention in my opening statement that one of the things that has been of great support for this EV business, whether it's two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, has been the support that's come in from the central government as far as the FAME subsidy goes, and also a couple of state governments who have provided the demand subsidy and also have waived off registration and road taxes, etc. So that also has given this industry a good boost. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. And moving on to Mr. Pratik, and that now Storm Motors, as I viewed Storm R3 product, it was very unique in its design. So I would like to know that what if you could help us understand what is your target market audience, and also what hurdles did you face in your journey up till now, and how do you hope to and plan to tackle them?
Yeah, so like I said in the story before that, Storm started with a vision to accelerate EV adoption and try to bring a product to the market which is addressed to a particular segment. And internally, we know that there are some segments that we really, want to kind of cater. But in the long run, I don't see, Storm as a particular. It's a car that is applicable to all applications, and but our first end of customers are people who are looking at personal mobility. If you look at small car segment, 60% cars are sold as a second or third car in the family, and that's the market we are going after first. We think that people now are in a stage, especially in the urban environment, where you have a bigger car or a family car, but you also have a CNG vehicle or something like that that is low in kind of fuel consumption. That is kind of purpose car that you only take to office and back. So that is a perfect market that Storm really attacks on, and then our cost per kilometer are several times lower than CNG or even petrol diesel can give. So once you identify that market, we start talking to the people and kind of understand that what is their mindset, because you can't just make a unique product and expect people to just adopt it. You kind of have to understand the whole product journey, the whole buying journey of the customer. Because it's still a very family business, decision. So every part of the family has to be kind of sold on this concept. So we kind of did a lot of digging on that, and we now have found a voice. We now have found a market that we are going after. We are also partnering with a lot of corporates to make the car available in terms of some kind of financing scheme to their employees, and that's where we see a very clear channel that corporates, strong corporates and the employees, all of their interests are aligned, and those are working out really well. We're getting a lot of interest on that side. In terms of challenges that we faced, I think initially everybody is a little taken back because nobody's kind of seen this kind of a car before, and it started from everywhere, from government agencies to suppliers to investors and then customers. But I think that just has happened in your stride. When you have a very clear vision, when you have a very clear advantage in terms of deeply rooted in your product, I think that's where the journey becomes simpler. Once people align on the highline goals, people are more accepting of change. And one thing I would like to point out is, like, I've worked in US for 8 years and kind of build products there, build products here. My experience is that Indians are really good at accepting change. We don't give ourselves enough credit. We will, like, people say that startups come in and give coupons, and the problem is, if you go to US and if you give a coupon, people will still not switch. They will stick to what they buy. Here in India, startups or new ideas get a chance by quick adoption, and once people adopt and they kind of see a better product, then they don't leave. So Indian ecosystem and Indian consumer is much more forgiving, much more easy to work with in kind of changes. That's been my learning, and honestly, I didn't think it would be that easy, but actually it's much easier than what we thought initially the challenge would be.
Like, this is definitely something that we have also seen, that because the growth of startups in India, sorry, over the past few years has been metamorphic. That even in, be it mobility domain or even any other industry, startups have grown at an unprecedented rate here in India. So that kind of really clarifies the point. Moving on to Mr. Janinder, I have a really a two-part question for you. First of all, like charging, as you mentioned that because your bikes have traveled for such long distances, so clearly the charging mechanism is quite efficient. So charging is a very basic problem for most two-wheeler EV users. So how has your company come up with various domains of charging mechanisms, and how do you what is the intricacies of that, if you would help me know?
Good point. Actually, it is something what most of us fear upon, that once the charging gets over, what to do. But before that, again, something interesting what Mr. Alok said, and he spoke about localization of the product and how we should work on the localization, make in India and all. It's a very, very valid and very effective point. And just to share with you how the automotive company is made. One is an auto component makers and one is automobile maker. Auto component makers supply parts to the automobile companies who assemble them or make them or join them or re-engineer them and then make an automobile and give it to you. I'm very, very happy to say and very proudly say that Indian auto component makers are tremendously good. The reason is, within 1 year time frame, sir, this is to share with you also, we have localized all our products. So every part that we are using, apart from lithium cells which are not available in India, every part is today localized. So because of this, Revolt was the only company in the month of January 2022, we got an award of merit or a certification from the government of India that this is the only company which has exceeded the limit set by them for localization. So thank you so much for pointing this out. And sir also said that the government of India is supporting big times, especially the central government. The drive of Mr. Gadkari is really humongous. I mean, so significant that he's literally pushing people to buy and manufacturers like us to produce more and more to serve the Indians. So which is very right, and also now almost 7 states are offering the subsidies, and more than 6 are on the verge of announcing the subsidies soon. We have been invited by all the state governments, including the southern, western, eastern, to set up our plants there. The reason being, they are offering such a huge kind of subsidy to consumer also and to the manufacturing industry also. So now coming back to the charging point of view, I'm sure many of you, or at least few of you, must be aware that as we speak today, Revolt is the only electric motorcycle company selling to consumers in India. It's the only one, right? Who has done 6 crore kilometers also on road, but of course leave that aside, only company selling. So as of now, as I speak, there is no competition now. It's always good to have no competition in the market and to serve the customers. So that's the first point. But the most important part is the charging. Because as I speak, almost the range is 150 kilometers. But what after 150 kilometers, or what to do, how it is being handled. So as a unique proposition, what we did, our battery is removable. Just like a fuel tank of a bike, open it, remove the bike, take it along with you, wherever you are sitting, at any dhaba, any shop, any 5-star, any hotel, any garage, your office, your home, put it in a 15 ampere socket. आप मोबाइल चार्ज करते हैं? That's a smaller charge, 5 ampere भी चल जाता है, but a 15 ampere. Just put it there, where you put in your TV, your motor, your washing machine, your mixer, your grinder, anything you put it. It's as simple as that to charge it. And you don't need to charge it every time for 4 hours. Because you don't bring it down to 0. Because even at 0, it runs for some kilometers. So it's very, very easy thing. And it is, again, as I speak, in the two-wheeler EV industry, I mean, I'm very proud to say that because I'm working in this organization, that we have introduced this concept of, swappable battery, taking the battery along with you and charge it anywhere. In addition, we have put in many swappable battery exchange centers. Of course, they are very limited because it is a very, very costly thing. So that you can go there, just put your battery there, get a new battery, and it hardly costs you 30 or 40 rupees, something like that. So nothing big deal. So that is why I'm saying charging was an issue, but not for two-wheelers and especially not for bikes as we speak. Of course, we are continuously improving on that. As the charging infrastructure improves, you can stop it anywhere on the road because battery might be little, heavy for many of us to lift, but it's almost as good as 18 kilograms. So many of us who are, not able to lift 18 kg might find it difficult, but as far as the younger generation is concerned, because generally I have noticed bike is driven by younger generation. Generally, 70 to 80% of the crowd is younger generation. And it is easy for them to use it, take it out and use it, charge it. Very simple to operate. So just to add on to this, your point, I mean, there is absolutely no fear in your mind that you should keep. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now on to the Bluesmart. Sorry, you had a second part of the question.
Yes, another card.
So, as I have seen in the past few years, that people usually relate two-wheeler EV vehicles with, they think that maybe to obtain a cleaner vehicle, we have to compromise on speed and on aesthetics. But I personally saw your bike and it's very aesthetically pleasing and it easily crosses 80 kilometers per hour. So, you've clearly broken that norm, but how far do you plan to and what is the limit? What's the ceiling for Revolt Motors?
Sky's the limit, my friend. Having said that, yes, today as we speak, our only model that is there in the market, RV400, that we are selling. Of course, 3 models are coming by this year end, and those are something different moods to capture. If you want to be a racer, you want to be a small, time user, or you want to be a, seldom user of bike where you use it as a luxury. So all kinds of model are going to come up very soon by end of this year, somewhere around Diwali that we are targeting. But today as we speak, the highest speed is, optimum speed that we call it as, is 90 km per hour, where it can carry 2 passengers. And at the highest speed, it will not go beyond 100 kilometers as a stretch. But you normally do not drive at 90 kilometers per hour every time. So something is called as an optimum speed for an automobile industry, especially for the two-wheelers. It is somewhere close to 60 kilometers per hour. Especially in any kind of city you go, highway you leave aside, city driving optimum speed, that also on the higher side I'm talking about, is close to 60 kilometers. And then it gives you a, one-time run of almost 150 kilometers. So which is, today it is happening. But again, the battery size is 3.2 kilowatt, but we are working on the higher batteries and higher range of batteries. So our next target that we want to come up is somewhere close to 105 kilometers per hour, and it should give you minimum 200 kilometers per one charge. So this is what I'm talking about the practical thing, not what being claimed by many of the people in the industry. So practical thing I'm talking about, so that is what we are targeting, we are working on. And, but just one more point I would like to add. EVs not only are zero pollution, but also zero noise. I'm sure most of us are aware about this. But do you think, guys, bike without a noise will be called a bike? It will be called a cycle then. Right? So to change the mood, what we have done is, we have specially, again it's our USP, we have specially designed a sound box with our, patronized or sound system. You get 4 kinds of sound in the bike, just on the switch of the button. So any mood you want to, you can make it silent also, you can add that, that bike sound you want, any kind of sound you want, you can customize it. And that's our patented sounds. So that's what, so that you want to enjoy the bike like a bike, or you want to enjoy a bike as an EV, any way you want to do. So that's what I'm saying, sky's the limit. Technology, AI, where it is leading to. And you are the futures, ITians, no better people to work on this industry to make it better and better. Our time is going to be over in next 10 to 15 years. You are the future, and you are going to lead this change. You are going to bring in all the differences. Think on these lines, work on these lines, and please see where your future is. Thank you, my friends.
Thanks a lot, sir. Now moving on to the final question of this round. Now for Bluesmart, I have a question that most people provide, we have other companies that provide cab services, but you are the only company who chose to inculcate sustainability in your business model. So what were the challenges faced due to this given element, and what are the benefits you reaped out of it in terms of public perception and in terms of monetary benefits?
In terms of sustainability, we know that public transportation is going to lead the EV revolution in India. Public transportation is the root cause for all the pollution in megacities of India. If you see Delhi or Bombay, Delhi NCR has been the world's most polluted region in the last 5 years. The AQI, the Air Quality Index of London is also megacities too. The AQI of San Francisco or New York is about 40-45. Which is good. The AQI of Delhi is 200, north of 200 throughout the year, and during the winter season it goes beyond 400. Increasingly we see that, there was a Harvard study, in fact, that 30% of Indians will die by 2030 because of bad air pollution. And like I said earlier also, whether you are a poor man living in Luton zone in central Delhi, or you are a rich man living in central Delhi, or poor man living outside, everybody has access to the same bad air quality. So we believe that public transportation has to go fully electric. It is actually public transportation which will lead India on the path to sustainable mobility and electric mobility. And then obviously consumers will follow suit when we have more models from manufacturers. Currently they are very limited number of cars which are out there. Not too many automobile manufacturers have manufactured electric cars. So once consumers get more variety, they will over the next 10 years shift to fully electric. There will be adequate charging infra which will also come up. In our case of Bluesmart, besides being a zero emission ride hailing service, we also launched 2 industry first products. The first one was zero ride denial. So of the 15 million kilometers, 15 million trips and 50 million kilometers that we have done, they all have been without any ride denial. So we don't deny a ride to any consumer. We also don't believe in surge pricing. So fundamentally we are more affordable than the other 2 incumbent platforms in Delhi NCR. So with this consumer centric approach of zero ride denials and zero surge pricing, we figured out the third one being zero emission mobility. So zero ride denials, zero surge pricing and zero emission mobility is exactly what we offer to our consumers. And the whole idea is to build a better city. EVs are great for the people, great for the prosperity of everybody living in Delhi NCR, great for riders, great for consumers, great for our nation building, also creating thousands of job opportunities. But the mega cities of India have to shift to electric. There's no other way to clean up, because we also found out in our research that transportation accounts for 28% of all greenhouse gas emissions in mega cities of India is because of transportation. Even in California, for that matter, 40% of all air pollution or all the greenhouse gas emissions which are released in California, in the state of California and the city of San Francisco and Palo Alto, it is because of transportation. So transportation is the root cause. In fact, transportation overtook electricity generation as the single largest contributor to greenhouse gas emission in the US. And now cities are taking steps, progressive steps like London has taken for that matter. London is the only city in the world which is going fully electric. Transport for London, TfL, came out with a policy that every single ride-hailing fleet, which is Uber Mobility, Bolt Mobility, FreeNow Mobility, and the London Taxi Company, everybody between them, they have 140,000 taxis in London. It's the Mecca Medina of taxi market in the world. And everybody is going full stack electric by the Christmas of 25. If you don't do that, then your licenses will be cancelled. And even now, I think our finance minister in the budget of 2022 announced that they are creating ultra low emission zones, ULEZ zones, where cars which are not electric will not be allowed to ply on the roads of Delhi NCR. I think that is very, very important for the future generations to come. If we don't clean up the mess, then the future generations of India will be in a very, very bad soup. So I think it is our responsibility of our generation. We created this mess in the last 30 years. It is our job to clean it up. And I think the role of public transportation is enormous in leading India on the path to fully electric mobility.
Thanks a lot. So that I'm pretty sure most of us did not know, I personally did not know the fact that transportation actually played such a major chunk of the entire pollution of the country. So yeah. And now moving on to the final discussion point is that what I gathered from all your conversation, that obviously the EV industry is a very symbiotic one, that all of you help each other in many, many ways. For example, Mr. Puneet mentioned that the car operators, the car providers really helped them in the times of pandemic to sort of reduce costs and everything. It was even the government helped them a lot. So if any points of those are left, I would really love if you could each tell me that what are your expectations and your positive points from the COVID era, as well as your future expectations from your other stakeholders right on this panel and outside the panel as well. And specifically, what are your expectations from the government, the policymakers? And that what do you believe that there can be a solution, one given policy or one given technology, new technology developed that can really revolutionize the EV industry? So if Mr. Alok could go first.
Sure. So, of course, there are experts on EVs, so I would like to understand more from them. But from my perspective on EVs and also from our industry, metals and mining, so all we ask for is level playing field. If you look at Indian entrepreneurs, we are highly enterprising, very energetic, and we are very ambitious. So our ask from the government is very simple. We don't want any favors, we don't want any subsidies. We only want level playing field so that we can compete with the world. Due to some anomalous structure, there are some constraints. If I talk about aluminium, even today 60% of India's aluminium consumption is met through imports. So that should change, because we are endowed with plenty of resources. We have to just right price, put the right structure in place so that we can add capacities. All the raw material which are there in India available, for some reason we are unable to explore them profitably, sustainably. So that's what I think government should push. Of course, I think more downstream, the constraints are on infrastructure, essentially charging, but otherwise also, and financing. Even today, I think people look at total cost of ownership. So I think more incentives needs to be given. Of course, I think we'll learn more from the panelists. That's where I think still people are hesitant, people are iffy, whether they should invest in EV or not. So that's the area, in my view, which government should address. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Over to Mr. Ramesh, the same question.
So as I said, the government has played a big role in people adopting the EV technology, and I think the government needs to continue to play this. Of course, as I say, and we've been watching in the four-wheeler space, of course, that state government do provide the demand subsidy, but then in a country like us, this may not be sustainable always. You can't live on subsidy alone. So obviously, everybody has a role to ensure that people do adopt it. But wherever it has been given, I think it has given a boost, it has given a fillip to the EV industry. The second thing I think the government can also play a pretty critical role is setting up of charging infra. I think they've done a lot. They've provided lots and lots of support, but we need more and more players to come in and put up chargers. I'm not sure how many of you know, but with every vehicle that is sold in the personal space, Tata Motors puts up a charging box at the residence of the customer. So there is a charging infrastructure that is provided. So actually, if you ask me, the number of charging points available is equivalent to the number of vehicles sold. But obviously, you come across challenges like the resident welfare associations, you may not have fixed parking. Where do you put up these charging boxes? Whether we should have captive chargers and whether we should have probably semi-captive chargers where somebody from outside can come in and do it. So these are things and challenges that people would need to understand. All of us work towards a solution. And every member sitting here has a role to play in ensuring that we break this. I don't think one company or one person can make a change. It's got to be a movement sort of thing where everybody gets obsessed with this and do that. I think we are committed from Tata Motors side that we will drive this as a business. We have a separate business unit that runs this business, and our focus purely, it's committed and obsessed with making EV a part of life. The other thing I also wanted to tell you is that as we move forward in this journey, the expectations of the customers will keep going up. One of the things that everybody today talks about is the connected car. Now you should stay connected. When you drive a vehicle, you should stay connected. People should be able to get in touch, etc. So this will also be applicable to the EV space. Now, obviously, the Indian customer is fairly conscious about the pricing, and as I said in the beginning, they're conscious about the range. So the aim of every manufacturer would be to see that what's the range that you can provide, and you've got to keep improving. For example, like somebody like Bluesmart now, when they are in the e-hailing space, the driver who has got to make as many trips as possible would try to see that his stops are minimized and we are in a position to get the vehicle charged after he's done a couple of trips. So we've got to, one, provide the chargers in the right space, but second, also every company would now make an attempt to see to it that we are able to run the vehicle longer, and that's what we are committed to do. The last bit, but which is the most critical bit, and what Alok also said, is on the financing bit. Today, many of our vehicles, I think, many of our vehicles were bought in the initial stage when it was the second or the third car in the family. Vehicles were used mostly for intra-city travel, so doctors would buy it because they had to travel to fixed locations, to their fixed clinics or hospitals, etc. They found it very comfortable. But as people start using this vehicle more, and we have seen now more and more people adopting this as their primary vehicle. Now, obviously, the need to travel intercity would go up. So somebody would like to travel from, say, Delhi to Chandigarh, Delhi to Jaipur, Delhi to Agra, whatever it is. And I think we must provide every possible solution to help them travel without any fear. So what would also happen in this is that financing will play a big role, especially in the fleet space. Now, obviously, the bigger players are in a position to approach the banks, and the banks see a value in funding. But the smaller the driver come owners or the smaller players who wish to enter into this industry do find some challenges. And obviously we must understand that where the bankers come from. And I talk to lots of bankers on daily basis. Their first argument always happens to be, because bankers generally look at from a perspective that what happens if somebody doesn't pay back the money and what do I do with that vehicle. So they are worried about the residual value of the vehicle. And this is, as I said, this is in a nascent stage. So obviously the residual value, etc., would get judged as we move forward. So financing is challenging, but more and more people are now opening up. We are beginning to see that they are willing to bet on this EV. And in case all the entire ecosystem is taken care of and all the stakeholders come to the party, I think we are in for better times ahead. In fact, much, much better times ahead. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Over to Mr. Pratik.
Yeah, I think everybody is kind of talking about the government doing great stuff, and I completely agree. And so government is going to do what it's going to do, and we are really thankful. But I think it's time that because like Puneet was saying that our generations might be in trouble. Actually, we might be in trouble. I think 20 years from now, we'll start seeing in our lifetime climate change really coming to our shores. I come from Bombay, and it's going to really hit us hard. So it's time that we took our matters in our own hand, and I really encourage you guys getting out of college or still being in college, start doing stuff in terms of, making, so it's not just about making the vehicle, there's so many other technologies that go into making vehicles. I see startups, building, recently I was in Silicon Valley and I kind of saw several startups make really smart solutions and pitching it to companies, and there's a huge surge of company being absorbed by OEMs and other such opportunities. So don't be discouraged that you are 1, 2, 3, 4 member team and what can you do. Everything starts small, and find a gap, find a place where you feel passionate about, and you can contribute, and if you bring a solution which is world class, I think nothing like it. I think that will push multiple times than what government could push with money or policy and such things. I think if you innovate at such a fast pace, and India has shown in IT industry, in all industry, I really wish we get all that talent onto our side in the automotive industry, and we'll kind of surpass all our expectations of 2030, 2035, 2040. That is all very easily achievable given the size of India and the workforce that we have. It's just us in the educated class, or even people who are thinking about innovation, to come up with those kind of solutions that drives passion, that drives industry, that drives government to invest and make doors open. So yeah, my appeal is more than government is towards you guys and people in this generation to actually start kick off this whole change, and that is going to make a much bigger difference. So that's my point of view on that.
Over to Mr. Jenender again. Sir, there's an issue with the mic, I guess.
See the technology again. Something happened automatically. I never did anything. I think our eminent panelists, they have already raised or explained very, very good points that level playing field should be there. Very well said. And Mr. Ramesh also said that financing option should be made easy, because the bankers are not willing to finance depending on the fact if what consumer doesn't pay. So there are various things that need to be taken care of while working on this industry as such. As far as the government is concerned, let me say that what support we need from the government, which we have been raising in various forums. There are certain forums like CII, SMEV, then there is an ACMA. So there are various forums which are representing this automotive industry in the EV space. Government has given subsidies, and which is almost, let me tell you my friends, that it is almost 20 to 25% of the vehicle cost. So you can imagine without that subsidy, the initial cost of ownership will be on the higher side. Today it is more or less the same as IC engine, but otherwise it would have been on the higher side. Of course, when you talk about the total cost of ownership, within 2 years, the cost of an EV vehicle, especially in two-wheeler industries, as compared to ICE engines, it becomes almost free. The vehicle becomes free for you, if you compare it with ICE engine. So what government has done, government has given a limited time frame for that subsidy, so that there is no clarity after this financial year or X number of units after being sold. Is the government going to support or not? Whenever we talk to Niti Aayog, with various government forums, we do not get that clarity from them. Of course, the speculation or the understanding is the government is going to increase it for further 2 years, 5 years, till the time this industry becomes self-sustainable. Because as the cost of parts come down, as the cost of battery cells comes down, the initial cost of ownership for the vehicle becomes very, very manageable, especially with the middle class family. So two-wheeler industry is basically for a middle class family, for students, for middle class family, for daily commuters, daily office goers. So we need to understand what is the consumer mindset. So that is, and of course, those who want a pleasure in two-wheeler driving. Now, moving forward, we are urging government and again to give us more clarity on this. Maybe very soon we'll get. So that's the kind of support we are looking at. And today only 7 states are supporting this EV drive. And of course, we are requesting all the 30 states to support us in big time so that this EV industry can flourish. because now everyone understands the future is going to be EV, and next 5 to 7 years, you will see this industry taking almost 30 to 40% of the market share, especially in the two-wheeler, of course, followed by the cars also. Now, in terms of, now I'll come into the financing part. Now, happy to share with you, many of us have dish antennas at home. I think almost most of us, whether it's Airtel, Tata Sky or anything. Can anyone say what happens if you don't pay the bill? They cut the service. Who cuts the service? Suppose he's sitting in Mumbai, he can cut it? Sitting anywhere he can cut it, right? From the back end. Fine. What is this? Your home services is cut sitting at Bombay or Delhi or Pune or Chennai or even outside India. This is technology. I hope all of you understand that. So I'll just happy to share with you in our bikes what we have done. We also face the similar kind of problem. We recruited one of very fine engineer. He was from IIT Mumbai. He developed, of course he was an experienced man, not fresher. He developed a very good immobilizer for us. So sitting at our office, we can immobilize your bike. So that your bike is just like a piece of 100 kg weight lying on the road. You cannot run it, you cannot drive it. So this technology when we introduced, again as a USP, developed by, many of you can develop better technologies than this. So we could attract more and more bankers. Now every banker who is there in India is after our life to bring us on their panel. So this is the kind of traction the technology can bring into this. So future is technology. Whether it's electrical, electronics, computer, software, mechanical, automobile engineer, any kind of technology that you people are working on. So help us develop this, come out with unique propositions and see how this industry goes. And your name will be there, name, fame, money, everything you get. Be the drive, be the changer, be the person who can bring in change in this system. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Now on to the final speaker, Mr. Puneet.
I think in terms of the government, I think the government has taken progressive steps. The Delhi EV policy is one of the best EV policies, in the Eastern Hemisphere. They're very, very progressive about, moving Delhi to become a fully electric city. Also, the FAME subsidy of the government has been very, very well received by all, people from the EV industry. But I think, even if you see the problem of India, India is a net oil importer. The oil import bill of India was $60 billion in 2017-18 when Niti Aayog came out with a report that India should go fully electric, and if India shifts to electric mobility, India will save $60 billion of oil imports, will be saved. And then the pandemic happened, the global pandemic, and everybody thought that there's no need for petrol and oil, and India's entire oil dependence will fall, and there's no need for EV for that matter. But in just 3 years, despite the pandemic, India's import bill, as announced by the finance minister in the budget of Feb 2022, she said that India's import bill for fuel has now gone to $100 billion. So $40 billion in the last 3 to 4 years. And that continues to go up because India has no resources in terms, we are a net oil importer. The cost of CNG, which used to be 38 rupees a kg, is now at about 62, 63 rupees a kg. In Delhi, it's 77 rupees a kg. In Gurgaon, most of the 2-3 wheelers are shifting towards now electric. The petrol diesel cost in Sarka of 2016-17 was about 73 rupees a litre. Now in 2022, it's gone up to 110, 113 rupees a litre. So we fundamentally believe, this is our thought process, that the government is absolutely committed to go fully electric. It's putting all stakeholders, responsible to shift towards electric. In terms of FAME subsidy, it's very, very progressive. The Delhi government subsidy is very, very progressive. And now I think startups or industry has to figure out how to shift to electric. I fundamentally believe that petrol and diesel cars will be found in museums in the next 10-15 years time. There will be no petrol and diesel cars on the roads in the next 10-15 years. The way the cost of alternate fuel, which is the mainstay fuel today, will become alternate fuel tomorrow. Nobody will use petrol and diesel. We just saw the cost escalation. Every week, the cost of petrol and diesel is going up. So our fundamental belief is that the government is doing its best. We can do better, and I think it's as a society we can do even better. So I think it's everybody's responsibility to take small and meaningful steps. Everybody can contribute along with the government. We can take public transportation, which is fully electric. The government can make more policies for public transportation to go fully electric. I think everybody has a role to play in this ecosystem.
So that concludes our group discussion, and it was truly an enlightening discussion for all of us. Now we'd open the session to the panel to a Q&A session with the audience. So if any one of you has any questions for the panel or for any specific speaker or for the entire panel, just raise your hands. Is there a mic available in the audience? Yeah.
Hello. Sir, my question is for Alok, sir. Sir, this is little off topic, but I wanted to ask that what is carbon neutrality? I read that Vedanta is declaring that it is going to be carbon neutral after few years. So, what is carbon neutrality, and Vedanta, despite being a natural resource exploration company, is going to achieve it? Can you tell something about this?
I think very important, very pertinent question, and this is the biggest question which I think all of us are asking at a global level. And if you look at the total carbon footprint, then the heavy industries, resources industries or extractive industries have the largest contribution towards carbon emission. So as a true corporate citizen, and since our India is a signatory to that COP26 and Paris Declaration, so in line with that, we have announced that we'll become a net zero company by 2050, and we have committed $5 billion towards that. The key steps towards that will be buying a lot of renewable energy. So we are already last year, our business, Aluminium business, was the largest renewable energy buyer in India. This year also we have announced close to 580 megawatt purchase of green energy. So the big shift will come from buying renewable energy. Then there is a whole issue of operational excellence. So doing things better, reducing the specific consumption of energy wherever we are using energy. And third, increasing the recycling quotient. I mean, by way of what were leakages or the waste we have in the system, if we recycle that and thereby reduce the cost of, the entire energy which we use for making our aluminum or zinc or copper. So that's how we are trying to become a net zero company. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question with almost all the panel members. Okay, so we are talking about lithium-ion batteries right now, because in automobile vehicle, I'm assuming that mostly we are using lithium-ion batteries only. So I was reading an article of Cambridge University only about the life cycle assessment of lithium-ion batteries. So basically, when we extract lithium, firstly, so many effluents are there while extracting the lithium-ion, specifically lithium. So, and during the production of lithium-ion batteries also we get certain effluents. So I read in a case study that almost 2.5 lakh kilometers equivalent carbon dioxide emissions are there while making the lithium-ion batteries at first place. And since Bluesmart is working in the electric vehicle section with the Tata vehicles and Morris Garage's vehicles right now, and again I read at some place that Pratik sir's firm is somewhere going to be related with Bluesmart, helping in the supply chain management overall. So since right now everything is surrounded around lithium-ion batteries only, and recently Tata has conducted a research in the fuel cell, not recently, but Tata has been working in fuel cell technology since last 5 to 6 years. I came to know about it through their own articles only. So yeah, can we say that because of a whole a carbon neutrality thing that we are talking about right now, so fuel cell can easily replace lithium-ion batteries or even any metallic sodium metal batteries also? Like, can they replace these batteries in coming future? Like, this is my basic question from all of you. Yeah.
Our case, we fundamentally believe that we live in Delhi NCR. We're not living next to coal-based power plants anyway. So the whole idea we thought initially as step one is decarbonize mobility in Delhi NCR, which could be done by electric cars which have zero tailpipe emissions. While the car is moving from point A to B to C to D, they are not producing any emissions. So these are zero emission vehicles. We call them ZEVs. So the cars don't produce any emissions. Now, India has one grid, one nation policy. So wherever you draw the power from, you're drawing from the central grid, which is today 60% unclean and 40% clean. So let's say that 60% of the power produced in India is through coal, thermal, all that, and 40% is through non-thermal base. But that equation is changing. That number was different in 1990, different in 2005, different in 2015, different in 2022, and it'll be different in 2030. Maybe the number will become reverse. 60% could be clean energy and 40 will be non-clean. Today, even when we make solar panels in India or we make wind turbines in India, we don't know where the power is coming from. So you're making a solar panel, but your factory of a solar panel manufacturing plant is powered by central grid, which is also today 60% unclean. So our thought process today is that similarly, lithium-ion battery manufacturing or the technologies which are there today, will the manufacturing of that technology will also shift to green or clean? That's one. Better technologies are coming in now. Car manufacturers are doing a lot of R&D, like Tata Motors and others are doing. They're doing a lot of chemistry. Cell chemistry is changing. Bluesmart's job was to ensure that in already a polluted world, it is already a polluted world. Can we make it even more polluted, or can we make it less polluted? Can we make it? What role should we play? We can make it less polluted. How? By driving zero emission vehicles, so that further cars which are going to be added on the roads of Delhi NCR, they should not produce emissions. Now the backward technology, how the panels are being made or how the lithium is being made, is also other stakeholders are being a part of. Our job as a mobility platform was to decarbonize mobility in the mega cities of India. We should not add to any more further air pollution, which has not anyways been created by us. We're trying to reduce it. That is what Bluesmart intends to do.
Just a quick side note. So yeah, that's basically how change happens in most industries. It starts small and it starts sometimes dirty, like what we are seeing. But it takes time for things to change. So the idea here is to start that, and as we go, we are always innovating. Like, recently we signed up agreement of co-development with a company called NZinc, which is making lithium cells, but they are 100% recyclable. So after the life cycle, these chemicals can be completely recycled and new batteries can be formed. But again, even those technologies will take time to come, and they will only get funding if other EV companies become, sustainable and investors can see growth. So it's more like driving the ecosystem together. You might have to take some short-term decisions to kind of, move the needle forward, but that's what it will take, and that's what, we all are sort of partying to. We know that things are not completely there, but we all have seen this happen in other industries, that this will happen and this is the change. Just answering your question about fuel cells and hydrogen is being talked about again, from a lot of different perspectives. Again, you need to understand that there is some carbon wasted, like carbon fuel wasted in converting whatever way you can convert into pure hydrogen and then bringing it back into the car. So it's not 100% clean fuel that you are bringing to your vehicle. So every technology has its trade-off. Every technology makes sense at a certain scale. Every technology has some replacing technology which is coming down the line. It's just that, it takes time. So that's where we are kind of in that nascent stage right now. So, it's important to start somewhere and not wait for things to really become perfect before you can do anything, So that's the approach that I think most people in the EV industry are taking right now.
Thanks a lot,
Just
sir.
a small note to
Yeah,
add
sure.
on to this. I mean, this in continuation of this. We had lead acetate batteries, lithium-ion came, and then I hope most of us are aware that the cost of a battery, especially in two-wheeler, is almost 50% of the cost of the vehicle. So again, like he rightly mentioned, at what cost you are going to bring in the new technology. You cannot have a mid-sized car what Tata or what any other organization is selling at a cost of 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs. Consumers or taxi operators will never buy that. So there is always a cost of bringing in the new technology. People are working on the hydrogen cells, people are working on the new technologies. But currently, if I buy that technology and I use that technology, my bike will be as costly as a car. So we need to understand what we are going to offer to the consumer and at what price trade-off. And above all, currently as we speak, there is a lot of R&D, a lot of work is going on. What's going to happen with the used cells once the battery is used? I mean, it is recyclable, yes, but that level of accomplishment has not happened where 100% it can be recycled. Or what's going to happen to that waste? That's very hazardous. So many things are simultaneously going on. As this industry develops, within the next 3 to 5 years, you yourself, by the time you are working or you are there as a professional or a scientist or an engineer, you will see you will bring in these changes or you will help in bringing these changes. So the work is on. I can give you the assurance at this point of time.
Great. We have time for one more question. So, is there anyone? Right. Who is? Yeah. Okay.
My question is regarding EV manufacturing. So, what are the current technological challenges EV manufacturers are facing, like reliability of batteries or motor efficiency? What all challenges are there?
To be honest, challenges are in tons, in plenty, because it's what you call it as CIP, continuous improvement process. What kilowatt battery you are using, what is the power of motors that you are using. There's a continuous improvement that going on. Initially, none of these parts, like Mr. Alok also mentioned, almost 100% parts were coming from outside India. It could be China, Vietnam, Taiwan, or any other country. But now, since everything has been localized, or the drive is towards localization, so Indian players who have come in, who are making the motors or the ECUs or the batteries that is being now assembled here, are really finding it very, very challenging to meet the ever-growing demand of the consumer. So I can only say it's a continuous improvement process. Now we are using 5 kilowatt motor. This keeps on improving. Earlier it was just 3 kilowatt. So we need to, tomorrow what's it going to be, because as our friend asked, how much kilometers the bike is going to give or how much speed you can drive at. Everything depends on the traction of this. So it is actually very challenging, but as of now, what we speak, the Indian component manufacturers are living up to the expectations, and trust me, my friends, that you are sitting in a very happy space where the drive is there, the AI-enabled things are coming, and the people are driving after technologies. People are investing big time in technologies, which never used to happen around maybe 7-8 years back or before that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. So we'll close the Q&A session now, and I'd like to invite Professor Panigrahi of the Center for Automation and Research in Tribology, IIT Delhi, and he would give the closing remarks and a vote of thanks to all of our panelists.
Thank you. So it's a great pleasure for me to be here and to give the vote of thanks. So let me thank first the audience for the patience listening for continuous 2 hours and having a very good interaction. So regarding this discussion about the EV policy and pushing this EV, as you know that various OEMs are coming forward, the government has made a lot of policy, the policy makers are there, but ultimately, as many panelists has told, the responsibility is also on the citizens. How we have to take this sustainability, it is a part of the growth, it is the sustainability. We call about the sustainable environment as well as sustainable energy. So both are linked to this electric vehicle. Because the electric vehicle, it has indirect impact on the grid also. Now categorically they told the percentage of the EV penetration is very less, hardly 10%. But think of when it will increase with the existing distribution system, can your grid is able to support it? So you have to look for that, the smart charging infrastructure. Because many point has been discussed about the charging infrastructure. Yes, there is a charging infrastructure. And every time, when you charge your mobile also, even if it is 90%, port khali hai, thoda laga do 90 se 10 ho jaye. So is it possible? Is it increasing your life of the battery? That you have to look on. So that's why the technology is there. Like one of the panelists has told, even if because of the technology, the whole vehicle is a scrap on the road because the technology is remotely controlled by somebody else. So for that, you the technocrats who are sitting here, and of course, everybody has to participate to take it forward. So I must thank all these panelists. Let us one by one. I thank Ramesh ji from General Manager Tata, and we know that a lot of effort has been taken forward for this electric vehicle, particularly for this Tata Motor, and everybody knows that a lot of vehicles are running on the road for that. And even if you know that the name Tata is itself in various sustainable domain, whether it is Tata Motors or it is Tata Power, and fortunately or unfortunately IIT Delhi is having a very strong collaboration in every aspect with the Tata. Then I thank Pratik Gupta ji, Storm Motor, perhaps the two-wheeler manufacturer and other things whatever you have discussed. And the most important thing is the larger penetration of the vehicle at present is two-wheeler and three-wheeler. And for those, you know, if you will go to any part of the country, and because this charging for that is a bit easy, so nowadays, again for the range anxiety, people are coming up with a battery swapping station and other things. So recently, just 3 days before, I have a long discussion with Chetan Maineji, particularly for the battery swapping and other technology. And so thank you, sir, coming here and giving some useful insight to the audience. I thank Jenender Anand, the CEO of the Revolt Motors. Very nice explanation of every point touching upon and highlighting about the importance of the technology and the technocrats, how to take it forward. Not necessarily you will be an IITian to take it forward, everybody can take it forward, and the beautiful example is sitting in front of us. So, as my one point agenda is, because the EV is such a domain that where there should not be any competition, there should be the cooperation. Unless otherwise you cooperate, because there are vast area of expertise required to take this EV forward, starting from the motor controller, and all these your charger, charging infrastructure, autonomous vehicle, data management, and mostly I must again thank to Mr. Punitji, and who the main emphasis to reduce this emission in any of the city to convert to have this electric vehicle, and encouragingly I must support it to go for public transport system, because intelligent transportation system is one of the very useful asset nowadays. In that case also share mobility, that is also another important thing in which we have to participate. Then lastly I thank Alok Ranjan ji, taking a lot of initiative for the carbon neutrality, and particularly he touched upon about the grid and how they are taking the power, and IIT Delhi also we have participated on this taking the green power toward, and for your kind information we have installed 4 megawatt peak solar power plant on the rooftops. So almost out of 12 megawatts we are getting 1/3 of that by this means. So thank you all, giving a very good insight. It is not pertaining to the EV, it is pertaining to the sustainable mobility as well as the sustainable energy also. So let us have a big clap for all these panelists and for all the beautiful audience who have interaction. Another clap for the audience. Thank you.
So now our elite panelists will be presented by a memento by Professor Panigai. And
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure. Thank you, sir. I'm very here.